are! Welcome to part 2 of our fermentation special. A burn session, me and the talented Tom, head honcho of White Whale Sauces in the Netherlands, decided to have on an empty stomach, not so clever, and to learn about fermentation. Today, you will be learning about different methods of fermentation. If you can ferment yourself, your body, your food, and other good shit.
But then we talk about different ways of fermentation. Bag fermentation. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, the vacuum bag, you mean?
Yeah. Tell the
Yeah.
lovely people what that is, because that's also a very nice way to do it.
Yeah, because it's I think they usually use a mash, right? But it's instead of using a glass bottle, a mason jar, or whatever container, you're using a vacuum bag. So again, that the risk of stuff exploding is very much there because there's no way for the pressure to escape. So I think you need to leave a whole bunch of headroom for it, the bag to expand and occasionally let some air out, or else you're basically, I mean, let's call it a pepper spray bomb, right? It's
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Fucking, I tell you what, you don't want that stuff smeared in your face. I'm actually fermenting right now. We got some dragon's breath peppers, and I'm terrified of the ferment because those things are somewhere near the 3 million Scoville mark, and I fucking hope I don't screw that up. I'm very good at fucking up ferments of other people's and of my own. I fucked up one of Tom's, in fact. Tom's was lovely enough, kind enough. I think it was my fault, to be honest. Was lovely enough and kind enough for a project I was doing to make me a Sasha-specific ferment of super hot chocolate chilies, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I think I stored it incorrectly and blew that shit up in my face as well. That's my special skill in this world. Tom, I do apologize about that. I feel to this day guilty for taking your artistry and fucking it up. I do apologize on that, mate.
But did you at least taste a little bit?
Yes, it blew up in my face, and so I tasted quite a lot of it, to be honest with you. I also inhaled it in my nose. It was fantastic. No, it was good stuff. It was actually very good. I was tempted to keep what was left, but my lovely Mrs. 420 forbid me from doing that. She was like, if that shit blows up, you definitely shouldn't be keeping it for later. And I was like, so what equipment, if the lovely people out there want to ferment some stuff, what equipment and what things do they need?
I think at the very least a mason jar, or we call it a wegpot. Maybe it's the same in Germany. You know, the one where there's
a weck, yeah, W-E-C-K, yeah.
The rubber ring. Like those work amazing because if you have a mason jar and you screw it on really well, it's not going to let the air out. So you have to do it manually. But if you have a weck jar, the rubber ring will let a little bit of air out, so you can just forget about it, which is very nice. I mean, just peppers, water, and salt. I guess that's like pretty easy. Maybe some weights if you want to be really, to keep all the peppers submerged under water, but you don't need much.
Do you use also a little bit acids, like for example vinegar, to change the pH of the water?
No, I'd like to let the lactobacillus do everything.
Fair enough. How on earth did you get into such a random thing as fermentation?
I think I actually started out with just experimenting in the kitchen with sauerkraut and pickling my own stuff. And then I saw a video about someone making fermented hot sauce. I'm like, okay, cool, peppers, that might be nice. And that's actually how the hot sauce hobby started as well, by fermenting.
Fermentation first, hot sauce second, you could say. So I know you made a lot of cool stuff, and you also had a lot of disasters with your fermentations over the years. Give us an idea of your biggest success or your biggest failure in that context.
Well, my biggest failure was with the mash as well, but that was like all the way in the beginning. I thought like, okay, let's try and mash for once. And my mistake was mostly just putting all of the ingredients of the sauce into the mash. So after like a couple of weeks, I had a very salty and sour mash of stuff. So instead of just doing the peppers, because that's what you usually do, and then adding some other nice ingredients, it was just salt mostly. Or the other time when there was, I think, at least like 3 centimeters of furry mold growing on top. So that's when I decided, like, I'm not doing mash anymore. It's just pure, pure brine. Yeah. And my biggest success, I would have to say, is chipolacha. Because if I get the fermentation just right, it can sort of taste like a Spanish chorizo. It's like super fun, happy accident.
This stuff is so good.
Yeah.
Those of you out there who don't have that in your house, get it in your house fucking now. It's an extremely, extremely good idea. Now, I love this hot sauce, and we go through it in the house pretty quick, I have to say. But then I'm wondering, what's your opinion? Because I like a lot of cooked hot sauces. I like a lot of fermented hot sauces. Now, I wonder, as a person who's focused on fermentation, what do you prefer in terms of when you're eating hot sauce? You prefer a fermented or a cooked?
I prefer fermented, I think. But I mean, there's a place and time for everything. Cooked is just as nice.
And so, I mean, like, what is it you prefer about the fermented hot sauces then? I mean, everyone's got their reason. So what's your reason?
Yeah, it's just like that depth of flavor you have. There's that lactic acid and I don't know, maybe because I grew up with sauerkraut and that kind of stuff, it just sticks with me, you know?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Well, I mean, you had the luck of growing up with fermentation with sauerkraut, you know? If someone wants to learn, you know, like how to do that shit, if they don't have had that luck, so how would you say they should go about it, learning fermentation?
I would say Google. Just it works the best for me. YouTube, you know, because I get to see like how it is supposed to look like, and you know what could go wrong. But yeah, it's just do some research and figure it out. It's not that hard, actually.
What should they avoid? It's always good to hear from someone who's done it before. What's a big mistake? We've obviously told them mash, avoid mash. Apart from mash, what should they avoid? A novice fermentation experimenter.
I mean, nothing to avoid. I mean, keep experimenting, but the one thing you should do or shouldn't do is if it smells or looks off, just don't dick around with it. Just throw it away. Just start over. Like anything furry, anything a weird smell, just quit it and start over. Don't like there's some very bad stuff going on in there. Like you could actually sort of die from that stuff. So just start over.
Or you could get healthy again if it's got penicillin in it, you know?
True, yeah.
Depending on if it's, you know, got dose of syphilis, you could be curing yourself if you like. Yeah, home remedies, man. So, all right, we made some soy sauce. That was great. You get some beans, you get some bits and pieces, you put them together, you ferment that. You made some sauerkraut. That's cabbage, vinegar. Vinegar? Yeah, isn't it? Vinegar? Yeah, brine and so on. So what other stuff? If people aren't really familiar with fermentation, what kinds of things that people have in their routine of eating are fermented things?
Bread, technically fermented by yeast. Especially sourdough. A lot of people have been doing it during the pandemic, right? Like making a sourdough starter. Beer, alcohol is technically a ferment as well. Olives, actually.
Olives?
I found that out too. They were actually brined and fermented before they find their way to the store.
I had no idea about that.
Yogurt, of course.
But when I look at something like yogurt or kefirs, the milk drink, ayran, for the Turkish people, I believe, that's fermentation, yeah?
Yeah.
Milk fermentation.
The same bacteria that does the fermented peppers.
After talking all this talk of food, I want to do another hit. You want to do a hit? Let's go. Oh yeah, baby. Those endorphins, I fucking love them, man. I can't get enough. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's so much more fun doing chili than doing drugs, man. Honestly, trust me. When I think back to doing ecstasy in a McDonald's queue at 7 o'clock in the morning, you know, whilst coming home from a nightclub, or I think now doing a hit of chili, So much nicer doing it here, Chilli. I love it. So, how can people involve fermentation in their normal kitchen routines? Like normal dude, family dude, doing their normal family cooking. How can fermentation help them with what they have to do normally?
I don't know if it's going to help them, but you can ferment basically all of your vegetables. It keeps them longer, adds a bit extra flavor. And it's fun to do. And it's actually pretty healthy too. I mean, just
What's healthy about it?
It's because in your gut, your body is fermenting the foods as well. So fermented foods help with it, and they help make the bacteria and the stuff in your gut a little bit more stronger and more healthy.
Does that mean if I die, my body will ferment itself?
If you submerge yourself in salty water, yes.
So if I wanted to be fermented out after death, would that mean salted water?
Yeah.
So everyone who dies in the sea is fermented.
Technically, yeah. I think if the fish don't get to you, then no.
Okay. So does that mean when fish die in the sea, they're also fermented?
Yeah.
So if you pull a dead fish out the sea and you eat it, you're eating a fermented fish.
I mean, if it's in there for a couple of weeks, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it, but.
Well, I'm sure there'd be some health contradictions connected to that. You know what I'm saying? But like, all right. So let's give the lovely people a little tip. So someone's watching this and they want to begin down the road of fermentation. You said Google's a good resource. Well, are there any specifically good cookery books, websites that you might recommend for people who are interested in starting down the road of fermentation?
There's basically the Bible of fermenting is the Noma Guide to Fermentation.
Noma.
Yeah, Noma is I think it's been 4 times the best restaurant in the world. They use fermentation for everything. And they wrote a book about fermentation, and it's seriously, it's like the Bible of fermentation. Like everything is in there.
So that would be the place to start. The Noma Guide.
If you have that one, it's like I think you're done. Yeah.
There you go, boys and girls out there. If you want to get your ferment on and you want to get going with it, get yourself the Noma Guide. That'd be the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And as my boy there said, it's super good fun. I have to admit, although I'm a lazy bitch myself and I don't ferment too much, I do enjoy a little ferment, and you will too. So give it a try. However, from myself, 420 Chilli Sash here in Germany, the lovely Tom, White Whale Sauces all the way over in Eindhoven, we'd like to say ciao for now to all of you lovely boys and girls. So, ciao. Well, now I've made myself feel slightly unusual.
Empty stomach.
Yeah, I wanted to actually, to be honest, because I felt like it today because my hands hurt, and because also it's been a stressful day.
Make other stuff.
The more what's the word I want? The more empty my stomach, the higher the endorphin kick.